Well, thanks for staying with us on Morning Express this Monday, the 23rd day of December 2024. It's about time for us to dig into the issues in the news as we invite to join us on the program virtually from Lagos, Patriot Desmond Olarewaju Olufowobi. Hello, Patriot Desmond. Good morning to you and compliments of the season.
Good morning, Bito. It's good to see you and compliments of the season to everybody watching us this morning.
Now, whilst the holiday season is off to quite the start, it's been dampened in terms of the food stampede deaths that occurred in three cities in Nigeria. Now, we saw an infographics earlier as compiled by Haruna Ibrahim of Daily Trust, who chronicled over 213 deaths in a period of 11 years, but has said that a majority of those deaths are happening quite recently and it's been linked to the living conditions in light of the current economic realities. Now, whilst this is the case, some states are now becoming even more stringent with giving permits for persons to carry out acts of goodwills and distributing palliatives. How would you analyze this food stampede deaths in light of the current realities?
Thank you, Bito, for this question. You see, in the last few days in the country, it has not been an easy one, especially with the happenings with stampedes that has affected some people in Anambra State, or starting from Oyo State, FCT, and Anambra State. It is disheartening. It is heartbreaking, more especially if you look at the scenarios that led into the death of these children and individuals that died because of stampedes that occurred as a result of, let me say, because of survivor, strive for survivor in the sense of hunger, in the face of hunger and the rest of them. And the government, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, also cancelled his
Attendance of the
attendance,
boat regatta
visits
in Lagos.
to the ferry in Lagos State, and issued the statement, and other states also followed suit. I read a statement by the SA on response, emergency response in Ondo State, Wellington. Wellington also gave stringent measures for anyone going into any form of gathering that is above 50 people. You see, this is not the issue at this point. Let's take it one by one. Let's look at the issue one by one. Yes, we may have had some bad plannings in terms of putting in safety measures and the rules or rules of engagement in terms of crowd management as well. That may have been a factor. Another factor is the issue of politics. You know, people have played politics with this issue. That's another issue. And another bigger issue, or the main issue, is the issue of hunger, bad governance, bad governance. So it is three things: bad management, bad management system for crowd management, bad procedure, and bad governance have been the reason why you have large turnout of individuals, large turnout of people that are talking about hunger, as well as talking about lack of food to eat and going out there and all that. So it is important we understand that hunger has played a big issue in the land, and that is as a result of bad governance. So there are so many things that is involved. One is the issue of poor management of crowd. Number two is not putting in the right measures to manage crowd. And the last one, which is the most important issues we should dwell on this morning, is the issue of bad governance that have led to widespread hunger that has affected lives and resulted in the stampedes. Because if not for widespread hunger, You won't have the thousands of people shunning out to go and queue for just maybe 2 cups or 3 cups of rice and 2 cups of beans and 1 carton of indomie. This is really not a good news for this country. And that is why, beyond the measures, beyond the safety measures that the president has called for, and many states governors are following suit, it is the issue of tackling hunger in Nigeria by putting in people-oriented policies. People-oriented policies that will drastically reduce the issue of hunger in the country. And that is where I want the government to focus on. Forgetting about distractions, I've heard Atiku Abubakar, I've heard Peter Obi, I've heard some opposition party trying to also look at the political aspect, exploit the political aspect of this situation. But beyond politics, it is the reality. The reality is that the government needs to put in place measures to curtail, not crowd measurement, but hunger.
Now, it's interesting to listen to you, Honorable Patriot Olariwaju, itemize the reasons which you feel have occasioned the stampede and saying the most important out of the three you listed is the hashtag end bad governance. Now, bringing us to the second point in the news where the federal government is now cautioning those who it says is politicizing the issue. Much like I understand what you're saying, you're aligning your thoughts with the opposition that is saying it shouldn't be about the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but about the realities Nigerians live with. This year alone, we've seen food inflation at its highest ever. And you mentioned that those palliatives might not be more than 2 or 3 cups of certain staple foods which Nigerians need. But when you look at the demographics of crowds that rushed out, these are not particularly, would I say, just one religion. It's across board. Persons who see the next opportunity to grab a meal took the chance, and quite sadly, more than over 60 people have lost their lives. The FCT minister this morning has asked that some survivors be treated free of charge in Abuja. But is this enough to be done in terms of curtailing this occurrence or even finding some respite for victims and families that have lost loved ones to this stampede?
It is easy for the presidency or the government of APC to pick up on opposition, not to politicize the current situation that has affected lives. And while we want to be fair to lives that were lost, we also need to care for the living. We need to also put in some mathematics, some policies in place, to cater and protect the lives of the livings that are yet, to go through stuff like that. So the president, it is easy for them to say it's politics, Yes, you don't expect an opposition not to play politics with this. It is even normal. It is natural that politics must be played. And that is why it is how a government lays his bed that he will lie on it. It is important for government to know that you need to be ahead of your opposition in policies, in everything. You have to be ahead. You must not be fined one thing. So it is only when you are fined one thing as a ruling government that the opposition party will politicize. So we should not even dwell on that. It is a necessary distraction. Opposition playing politics is this with this in political environment is called necessary digression. It is necessary that they will do that. But beyond that is to put in measures that will make it even difficult for anybody to politicize it. And what are those measures? It is, one, it has happened. What are the steps that the government is taking? One, every lives that were lost due to hunger should be compensated. The family they should not bear any loss in terms of trying to bury their loss. That is one. Then number two, those who were injured, the government must ensure that they are adequately taken care of. I'm talking about their medicals. Beyond their medicals, there has to be sort of incentives that the government will emotionally roll out to the people. You understand? To show that the government actually empathize. It is a fact that people were hungry. It is a fact that people came out in their hundreds and thousands in pursuit of that palliative, food palliative from those organizations because of hunger management and survival. It is also a fact that this crowd were not properly managed. So, as it is, the government has done something that is wonderful, and that is to put in stringent measures to ensure that this crowd is managed. Beyond management of the crowd, it is to put in certain arrangements that would ensure that people who have the interest to give out palliatives to hungry Nigerians during this Yuletide season will not be deterred or discouraged. And if the measures are too stringent, government must work with private sector to see that government provides all the necessary amenities. Some states today, because of these stringent measures, want to start politicizing. Even the government of APC, the government of APC today want to start politicizing by monetizing permits. Did you hear that? Today, they want to collect money for permits.
Should that be the case? As much as we agree that any crowd gathering over 50 to 100 persons in light of the recent occurrence needs to be approved by the police and have law enforcement to help with crowd control, should they be
Yeah.
required to pay a fee now?
I am telling you, based on the information I get yesterday, I would not mention the state government and I will not mention the person in charge because it will not be professional of me to do that. But do you know that because of some people already have some events, it may not necessarily be an event for giving out
Palliative.
palliative or anything. It could be football competition, it could be some kind of fun fair, end of year party that definitely will have more than 50 people in attendance. Today, because of this new policy, because of this the policy that has been issued, now you have to get permits before you can go ahead to organize your events. And some people are now taking advantage of that situation. They want to take advantage of that to get money from the people who are organizing these events. You see, this is where leadership needs to come in. This is where the opposition needs to pick on. This is where our focus should now be that no Nigerians should be taking advantage of situation of this nature. And that is what we are saying. It has happened. Government must look at their policy going into the 2025 budget. The former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, also said it in paper this morning that the 2025 budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria does not cease to the what? Yearnings of Nigeria, whether true or false. This government must look beyond lip services. This government must be people-oriented government, whether for the sake of winning election or for the survival of the country. Nigerians are patient with this government. This government shouldn't disappoint the people. And the only way or the best way the government will not disappoint the people is to look at the policy, the entire policy. Truth be told, there is hunger in the land.
Now, I agree with you, Patriot Desmond. When you look at the reactions from Nigerians, especially across these three cities where it happened, it's agreed that there is hunger. Because one would think that since it happened first in Ibadan, those in Anambra would have taken caution. Or maybe those in Abuja, especially owing to the fact that they're closer to the seat of power. But is indeed a reflection that none of them took caution because of their current state of living and threw caution to the wind and forgone the caution to safety as they scampered out looking for what to eat. In light of this reality, what does this do to the reports from the hashtag End Bad Governance protests? Now, there are mixed reactions. The police, on one hand, is rejecting Amnesty International's report, whilst people are saying that that protest in itself is not a true reflection of the hunger in the land. Is there a correlation between this sad, tragic incidences and all the reports we had seen prior to now?
And don't forget that NSAS protest was in 2020.
I'm talking about the hashtag End Bad Governance protest, not NSAS.
Yes, the End Bad Governance protests, we've not heard stories of casualties. The only time Amnesty International issued some statement last week was in respect to the NSAS
2020.
in 2020. So for this last August protest, as well as November protest, we did not see casualties, and so we shouldn't dwell much on that. But there is a correlation. The truth is this: there are some Nigerians who are not patient with the government, and they took to the street to protest bad governance. Now, the only thing, myself, I protested, but I do not go out there to protest. I am strongly against organized protest. I'm only against mobilizing people, paying them 5,000 naira, 3,000 naira, as the case may be, to go out there to protest against bad government. That is not it. Protest must be humane. Protest must be natural. Protest must address the yearnings of the people. And that kind of organic protest will bring results. Organized protest, where the protesters do not even understand the consequences of protests, will not bring any positive result. It will only end in the hands of the paymaster for their own selfish interest and not for the interest of the country. Why that is being told? The truth is this: there is correlation about everything being told. There is correlation between hunger, bad policies, and frustration. But these things are not properly managed. These energies are not properly channeled. And that has been some of our concerns. I cannot stand here this morning to say that there is no hunger in the country. Things have not been easy beaten among many Nigerians. There is so much hunger in the land. And then this governance system in Nigeria is also another thing. Government of Nigeria itself is a problem. We are not proactive. We are not proactive government. We are rather reactionary governments. Imagine an event took place in Oyo State. It took a lot of lives. And the people in Abuja cannot take precaution, even the organizers. So something is wrong with our system in Nigeria. Some people, I think, why we want to agree that there is hunger, and some people are really genuine in their cause to help the poor. I feel like some people too, they are doing this to expose the vulnerability of this government, that there is hunger in the land. Because how can things like this happen repeatedly within days? This is not issue of bomb blast. It is not issue of hoodlums attacking them. It is an issue of mismanagement, poor crowd control system mechanisms. Now, we have a lot of agencies that should be responsible for that. In the FCT, for instance, we have the FEMA, we have the NEMA, we have the police, and we have other sisters agencies that should be responsible for the management. Or the only justification for this agency is that they were not pre-informed. If there were notification, they should have properly managed this situation for it not to happen. How many crowds are we talking about here? We are not talking about 1 million people. So somehow I feel like there is a foul play somewhere, but I wouldn't want to dwell on the foul play, because we need to speak to this government of APC to look at its policies and see that they put in certain measures on ground to correct some of these anomalies that is causing serious hunger in the country. I was happy when I read last week that Dangote refineries is bringing down the cost of its pump price, petrol pump price. I was happy.
Now, Honorable, let's not jump the gun. As much as we know the issues are related, we'll come to the pump price. in terms of how this would bring respite to Nigerians. But let's also look at some of the policies this morning as captured on the front pages that have informed what you say about policies. At the start of this administration, the president took the decision to float the naira, thereby removing the exchange rate cap. He said it was in a bid to unify the exchange rate. Many economics pointed to that as a bad policy. Now, the Vanguard newspaper had earlier looked at the year 2024 in review, particularly on how bank recapitalization, FX scarcity, and this decision to float the naira, also occasioned by inflation, has further worsened the woes of the economy. Let's get your thoughts on this. Looking back on 2024 in light of these policies at different quarters of the year and its effect on the financial sector, would you say that there have been some gains, as much as Nigerians are accused of not being too patient with the reform trajectory of the renewed hope mandate?
First of all, Abito, before you talk about reforms, you have to look at participation and agreement, consensus agreement. Nigeria is a country, a large country. Some might say Nigeria is not too big, but for the fact that Nigeria is a multilinguistic and multi-ethnic nation with multi-ethnic, multi-interest country, there are a lot of people that you must, whether you like it or not, as a government that is sensitive about growth or interested in development, must consult. The government of the country must consult certain stakeholders before it draws its policies. And that was what this APC government failed to do when they came into power. Beautiful policy. Bank capitalization, beautiful policy. Fuel subsidy removal, beautiful policies. Floating of naira, beautiful policies. But the question is, are these policies coming at the right time? And have people been well tutored, educated, informed about what should be their role in order not to jeopardize the economy? In order not for the economy to be affected the way it has been affected. I liken this situation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his policies and how things played out as a case of a kindergarten child. You take somebody to a kindergarten and then you find out that they've already echoed certain rhymes into their head. So when they get home and you ask the child, what did you learn from school? You will see the child who starts singing, Sounder Lily, I'm a nurse in my country, everybody knows me well. Even when the child does not understand, even sometimes when he misses the lyrics, the reading and the lyrics, he's only giving out baggage in, baggage out. Before the coming of this administration, there has been much talked about subsidy removal. Economic experts have talked about bank capitalization, floating of our naira, unification of exchange rates. But then, when this government comes into power, it is expected of that leader to look at the Nigeria economy, a closer look at the economy, and x-ray the economy scientifically to know what policies work together and which does not work together. Not to just come and play the rhythms that have been sung into your head while you are in what? In prep class. The policy of the president is good, but they came at the wrong time. And their implementation was also faulty. Because you do not put in the measures, certain measures in place before that. And these policies, while they are good policies, have not affected the country. People have asked, from the fuel subsidy removal, how much has the federal government saved for capital infrastructure? Because today, the government still borrows a lot of money from Germany, from France, from India, from different parts of the world.
Now, talking about how much they've saved from fuel subsidy removal for capital infrastructures, it's important to note that there's also been an increment in FAC allocations to states, which is also
That is not,
tied to how much they've saved.
yes. You see, that is the problem. Before now, we've talked about the complacency towards development by state governors. The state government are not hungry for development, and most of their policies are not targeted at developing grassroots. Most state governors have been accused of collecting FAC from the federal government and converting to dollar and stock in their foreign account, and the federal government has yet to investigate that. We have talked about enormous natural resources domiciled in states that have not been utilized. The people domiciled in states have not been utilized. The youth population domiciled in states have not been utilized. And there come the federal government in continuously increasing the FAC allocation. What is the intention of the federal government? Seriously, the government of Nigeria is still having problem with governance, from the local government, state government to the federal government. I'm happy for some of the reforms, like the tax reform, and I think every aspect of our life requires and needs serious reform at this material time. From tax reform to health reform to insurance reform to education reform to petroleum reform to leadership reform. We need electoral reform. We need reform in every aspect of our life. Because it is not about how much money is at the disposal of the states. It is about how intentional these state governors are. Today, just last week, we read a report that only 3 states generated more, you understand, internally generated revenue, which means if there were no FAC from Abuja, many states will not survive. That is a big issue for us to ponder on, and even the government to ponder on. Any state in Nigeria today that cannot increase their internally generated revenue every quarterly, every yearly, does not deserve more money. The reward for increment of FAC should be for improvement or increment in your internally generated revenue. And that is the only way this country can move forward. And that is my own opinion and my own view. Bito.
I do agree with you. It's also a stringent condition, much like should be applied so that we find this desire to ensure that grassroots development takes place independent of what comes from the center. But not away from the institutions of government. Let's also talk about the people. Because this morning, there's a report that says there is still 4.3 trillion naira outside the banking sector. And most of this has been tied to distrust for the financial system. We have ATM points that are dry, whilst we have a thriving POS business in the country. Many are looking at it from the angle of how we can ensure that some of the policies that failed under the former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, which saw the Naira redesign policy further make SMEs suffer than it was intended to mop up liquidity. Now, moving forward in 2025, how can the Oluyemi Cardoso CBN rebuild the trust in financial inclusion and mop up some of this liquidity towards making our banking sector even better?
You see, we have a CBN that is non-functional. Seriously, for there to be trust among the Nigerian people towards our banking sector, the CBN has to live up to its expectation as the umpire that regulates the activities of the banking sector and the banking system in Nigeria. Today, a lot of people go through hurdles banking in their various banks. And the CBN, since I am an adult, I have not seen where banks are punished for their misbehavior and maltreatment of customers. Do you know that on daily basis, I know there are times that there has to be glitches or itches of network, but on daily basis, Nigerians loses interest in banking with our banks due to poor management and poor service to the people. Do you know that there are people who will spend up to 6 hours to resolve a transaction issue, and despite spending 6 hours, still does not address or resolve the problem? Do you know how many failed transactions people go through every day? Do you know how many Nigerians are fought bitterly because of the claim that I have sent money to you, and customer claiming that he is yet to receive the money, and the person who paid money wants to take the goods and leave the market, and he was unable to do that, and it will lead to serious conflict, violence conflicts that even lives were lost, and the CBN is not doing anything. I do not understand banking system because I'm not a banker, but the little I understand about transaction with this coming of OPay, this fintech that simplify banking system, and I'm wondering, does it mean that the PAMPay, the OPay, the Money Point is richer than First Bank, Senate Bank, GT Bank, Access Bank, FCMB Bank, are commercial banks in Nigeria, that they cannot operate on what? On multi dose system, mushroom system that improve services, just like we see with this PAMPay fintech. Today, you send money in banks, the money will not get there. Your money will be missing. Do you know that I made a transaction that it took me 3 good months before the money could be reversed to my account? And that was because I complained more than 5 times, fiscally advanced, not even via their calls. For people to have trust in banking system, the service delivery must be top notch. Banks must be thinking about delivering service to the people. Once the people can have service, people will have trust. Nigerians are not comfortable with the banks. That is why we are having this issue. And the only way Nigerians can be comfortable is when they improve and increase their service delivery. And the only umpire that can help banks to achieve that is the CBN. But even the CBN today is not doing what they should be doing. And that is why today the banks see themselves as lord over people's money. You struggle to make money, you struggle to save the money, you even struggle to get the money.
This struggling to get the money is also backed by data that 87 million Nigerians cannot afford to raise 75,000 naira. And it talks about delays about the implementation of the new minimum wage. We'll get to that. But the challenge is, with banks also providing automated teller machines, ATMs, which are empty most times you visit commercial banks. We now hear another report that to achieve the missed targets of 2024's financial inclusion, there is need for 60,000 more ATMs in Nigeria. Do you think that we're just banding figures around? Is there any genuine will towards achieving this financial inclusion and ensuring that people trust banks with their monies?
You see, when the banks wants to, defend some failure, there's always excuse for non performance. There is always a reason for your failure. When anybody fails, it will always have a reason. It is that culture of mediocrity. Telling me that we still need 60,000 or how many thousands bank ATM system in Nigeria is arrant lies. Reason being that even the ATMs that we have across Nigeria, majority of the ATM in Nigeria are not working. I can put it to you based on my own personal experience that 55% of ATM points in Nigeria are working. And that is the reason why people prefer to go to POS points. People prefer, how would a sane society prefer POS than ATM? ATM that is you and the technology. It's even secured. ATM is better secured. ATM is better. ATM assures that your information are secured and your money transaction is secured because it is you, the bank, and the ATM. But in the case of POS, If you go and collect 10 million, 5 million, 1 million, the person, the teller, the person who is there to attend to you, we have the information and can leak that information to your enemy. But today, people find solace in the POS business rather than going to the ATM and the banks. The reason because technology should have been, we are talking about era of using technology to solve human problems. Right now, that is being defeated by the day only in Nigeria. Only in Nigeria because of lack of efficiency by people who have been saddled with the responsibility to ensure that there is probity, transparency, accountability, and efficiency. And that is what we are facing in this country. It's now making it look like technology cannot solve problems. ATM is the best technology that should solve the problem of this. But, Bito, how many ATM points have you been to and you're able to get money? And let me tell you, let me remind Nigeria, the reason why ATM stopped paying money before I can get up to 100,000, 200,000 from ATM before now was during the time of Emefiele, during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, when there was what? When there was replacement of old Naira note and new Naira note.
The Naira design policy.
Of money.
That policy you're mentioning, a lot of people say it is somersaulted. Does the President-Tinubu administration need to revisit that policy, or how do they move forward on its position?
I don't even know why the president feels he can dwell on that old policy without. That was a management mechanisms to manage the shortage of cash. It is not a policy, Bito. It was just a directive by CBN to manage so that economy can still be afloat. It is not a system. It is not a good thing in the first place. It was to manage the shortfall. So does it mean that the country still do not have enough cash between 2023 till 2024 December? What is the CBN doing?
Now,
is it this
Desmond,
transparency?
why I say
this
it's a policy?
Transparency is a big challenge in Nigeria.
Now, Patriot Desmond, why I say it's a policy is because it has also been linked to the cashless policy in terms of transitioning Nigeria from where we are now, a cash-reliant economy, to the cashless end of it. But when we look at the petty trading that is going on in Nigeria, you would agree with me that most of the informal and formal marketplaces still rely largely on physical cash. That is why I'm asking, does the federal government need to...
Bito, let me cut you quickly. Let me cut you quickly, Bito. You see, it will make sense where you introduce a cashless policy. First, see, let me tell you, Bito, policies are not just created. Policies are thought of and created to solve problems and to add value to the system and not to cause pains. The same government would not be creating policies that will cause pain, hardship, and affect the economy. We are talking about inclusivity. We are talking about cashless policy where we do not have the infrastructure, digital infrastructure to support that. Are we okay in this country? Do we even understand what we are doing in this country? How many Nigerians have access to these digital machines and infrastructure that support the cashless policy? When you say cashless policy, you're talking about bringing in seamless operation. You're talking about avenue. You're talking about situation where you have access to technology that can enable you make seamless transaction, and it will be all inclusive. Today, I can't move from point A to point B because of lack of cash. And you are saying that it is about policy. It is not, because Nigerians would like to borrow, would like to learn things from outside the country without thinking carefully how these policies, how these situations fit well with the people. At the end of the day, we are creating more problems than good, and that is what is happening in this country. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, needs to look at the CBN architecture, all the policies in the last 20 years, and go back. See, some of the problem we have in our economy is because the CBN is not sitting right. Incompetent hands have been the one managing our CBN ever since the time of Soludo and Muhammadu Sanusi and the rest of them. We've not had a capable and to manage or sincere individual to manage the CBN. And that is why our economy is in shambles. And I want the president to make a difference. We should not follow status quo. We need to change the scope. We need to look at the situation, look at the country, get local economists, not international economy. Get local economic that understand the market force, that understand the buying and selling, that understand the people of Nigeria and the level of infrastructure in Nigeria.
Now, lastly, before we go into the last item on our discussion, still on the CBN and its drive to make the banking sector even better, we've seen a new recapitalization plan for banks, and the banks have also, in somewhat, boosted profits. But on the other end, there has been complaint about access to credit facilities by business owners and the SMEs sector. In keeping with this recapitalization plan and the faith of businesses in Nigeria, especially in line of inflation and FX scarcity, how best can the banks or the CBN even serve Nigerians who are seeking access to capital?
Let me tell you, the people who need this capital are the small scale and medium enterprises because of our environment, our social and our political environment. And those are the people, the bedrock of every nation's economy. If you look at the population of the people that are involved in SMEs,
the service sector,
medium enterprise, they are more than the conglomerates. The conglomerates do not have problem because they don't deal with cash. They deal with transactions in thousands, in millions, in equity, in bonds. But these small scale and medium enterprises without liquidity means that the economy will suffer. And the only way is that it is still the policy. Many money circulation, liquidity is supposed to be moving. And the CBN must develop a system to track our money. If possible, our money can have tracker. If the monies are tracker and is stuck in a particular place for more than 30 days, then you can ask, what's happening? Why is this money stuck in your place? This money is supposed to be moving around in order to liquidify the economy and provide access to the market. Because liquidity provides access to market. And when there is access to market, there will be value addition. And then this value addition is what our economy is suffering. A lot of people are suffering today. Nobody can. Some people want to start business, cannot start business. Some people want to expand their business, cannot expand their business because of some of this policy of the government. So the government needs to get in people that understand business, not politicians, to manage our economy. Politicians should not be the one managing our economy. Politicians may not understand the economic aspect of liquidity and the flow of foreign currency. Today there is politics with FS. Even the FS in Nigeria, we can have an understanding with foreign countries that there should be a way so we can track this money. If our money have tracker, nobody will bury it underground. I don't know if that works, but we can start negotiating with technologists, world best technologists in Nigeria.
Well, I believe that's an evolving conversation, and hopefully the place of technology can be used in also tracking the money and ensuring that the money remains largely in circulation and not diverted by people who usurp the system. Now, in conclusion, our final topic of discussion before we wrap up this segment is on projections for the pump price of fuel. Now, the Yuletide season is one traditionally over time in Nigeria that has witnessed a surge in the price of PMS. But this morning, the Independent Petrol Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, is hinting that there might be a slight depreciation to 935 naira occasioned by interventions from Dangote refinery. What do you make of this?
It is a good news, Bito. We are expected that having local refineries, operational local refineries that refine fuel for us in Nigeria would affect the cost of petroleum. Don't forget, Bito, before the coming of Dangote refinery, fuel was sold for 650,000, 650 naira, 750 thereabout. And then when Dangote refinery announced that its petroleum will be available for Nigerians to use, something happened between that period that saw to the increment of fuel from 650 naira to 950 naira to 1,050 naira in the black market before Dangote releases its first fuel. And we're hopeful at that particular time that the coming of Dangote refinery should cease fuel sold for no more than 500 naira. We agitated, we asked questions, and were told at that time that the reason why Nigeria would not be buying fuel from Dangote 500 naira at that time is because the crude that he refined into petrol as at that particular time was sorted from South Africa, sorry, from United States of America. That those things came from Russia, from USA. And then that by October 15, 2024, that the price would dwindle because the NNPC and the federal government of Nigeria would have been supplying crude oil to Dangote refineries. That politics go forth and back. We did not see any reduction in the price of petrol. But right now, this morning, although last week, Dangote refinery issued that statement. I got that information last week. And I'm happy that IPMAN also succumbed, agreed that by today, being 23rd, Monday 23rd, that price will come down to 935 naira, which is a big relief. If what the government should focus on now, and the people of Nigeria to focus on now, is that there has to be some moderate pressure on Dangote and the NNPC to see that starting from now till forever, the price of petroleum is reduced every quarterly, every month. And that is how the Nigerian people can enjoy the dividend of having a local refinery that is functional. Anything short of that, I tell you that instead of people to be happy that we have something, they will be angry. And that is what I can say.
This is a very good recommendation of a quarterly review downwards of the price of PMS. But it's also important to look at some of the factors that have occasioned this agreement. Two factors. Now, whilst on the one hand, Dangote had announced that there would be a 7.92% reduction in the depot price at his loading gantries. There's also an announcement on the side for a partnership between MRS to ensure that these retailing prices at outlets are complied. Let's look at these two factors. How important is the ex-depot loading price and this partnership with MRS to ensure compliance in the reduced outlet price?
I don't think that is necessary. You understand? In as much as Independent Petrol Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, are involved. And don't forget that IPMAN, they lift and they distribute to different outlets. It could be MRS, it could be any other company. As long as the price is announced to Nigeria and the marketers, the petrol marketers are getting this at a reduced rate because of market force itself, people will continue to patronize the petrol station, fuel station that sells at a reduced rate, which will increase the turnover and which will amount to value increment in his turnover in money. So it will affect the market. Other marketers want to follow suit. It's not a big deal. Where Dangote needs to do its big deal is to ensure that these prices are reduced, published, announced in every part, and partner with the NNPC. Partner with NNPC and the NNPDPR that is involved in regulating the price, to ensure that there is task force, to ensure that no Nigeria pays more than 930. It depends because of cost of transportation. But there has to be a template by the NNPCL. It's not what Dangote can achieve. NNPCL still need to do that. Once they have template the price, in Lagos, for example, maybe 930 naira, 35 naira, or 930. I don't even know how much they are giving to them. But I know that now it has been agreed that it should be sold for 935 now, which means they are getting it lesser.
They're getting
Their
that probably
transportation and every
880.
other factors
If
have
the
been
information
factored in.
correct,
It
if the
is now
information is
to
correct,
ensure
it's
that there is compliance by
887.
setting up task force. By ensuring that there are task force to ensure compliance, implementation, and there should be punishment. That is how it should go. That is the work of government. The work of government is to ensure that individuals, business owners complies with things that bring relief to the people. That is government. In short, government does not have hand in government. What government has to do in government to ensure that life is bearable for the common people. Put in task force to monitor, to ensure that there is safety, to ensure that there is free access and there is equality of movement among the business owners. Ensure that anybody who is found wanting is punished to serve as a deterrent to other business owners. That is the business of government. So it is a good news, Vito, and it's a good news to all of us that have been paying from our nose to get a liter of oil in Nigeria. And
Now
what
in
I can only
closing,
say is that
because of time, in closing, I also like to get your thoughts on one last thing in terms of government's role in all of this. Because we saw the renewed hope mandate begin with something last Yuletide season that was called a 50% reduction in the transport fare to selected areas within the country, and also saw a partnership between certain transport companies to be able to afford Nigerians this transport palliative. This year again, we hear that it may begin tomorrow. Now, an emphasis on the may and the willingness of these transport companies to re-enter that negotiation that saw them last year give Nigerians that 50% transport reduction. What do you make of this?
yeah, last year I spoke about this uh, on national television that it was a good relief to some of my Easterners, my Igbos friends, and some Yoruba friends that are Christian that would be traveling from Abuja, that will be traveling from Lagos to the east, from Abuja to the east, or from Abuja to Jos, Plateau State, and Kaduna State, from Lagos to Kaduna State. It was a good thing. It was a well thought policies. In short, these policies actually affirmed that renewed hope mantra last year. So if the government is smart enough, they will in short intensify more effort on that this year. Because government should start thinking all areas to see that they bring relief to the Nigerian people. Nigerians are going through a lot. See, even the rich are crying because the percentage of rich people in Nigeria is very minute. So these poor people depend on the few rich people in the communities. So the rich too are affected. And that is one thing that the government needs to look at, to start bring close between the very poor and the very rich. Government needs to be deliberate in its policy to have create average Nigerians, average wealthy Nigerians. We do not have average wealthy Nigerians, and it's affecting the country economy. We have the rich and we have the poor. What happens to the space of the average? For me, I don't even know where I can categorize myself. Whether it's the very poor, because I'm not rich. So I want government to create policies that can uplift the well-being of many Nigerians to the average level, so that the economy will not suffocate some people and Nigerians will not resort into violent conflict, frustration, stampede because of 2 cups of rice and all that. So the government needs to be deliberate. The government needs to look at the policy in 2025. It is not about giving palliative, it's about institutional framework. It's about deliberate changing the policy to suit the Nigerian environment. Not this copy and paste policy from IMF, from World Bank, and from other climes. You have to look at the country. You have to look at the resources. You have to look at the people. You have to look at the availability of the challenges and creating the side of the people economy towards solving those problems.
Right.
And that is how Nigeria economy can thrive.
All right. Thank you very much, Patriot Desmond Olarewaju Fowobi, for your time on the show. I'm wishing you a lovely Christmas celebration and the best of the holidays.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Beatrice.